In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to make a beautiful ball python bioactive tank on a budget. So let's start with the most expensive part of the build, the tank. Now, tank size is important for a ball python because they can get pretty large. My guy is almost 4 feet long. So I went with this reptile habitats enclosure for $275. It measures 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot, so he will have room to stretch his entire body out in this enclosure. Now, I did have to assemble this enclosure myself, and it wasn't easy. You had to really smack this thing to put it together. Not only that, I do have to make sure it's waterproof because ball pythons need high humidity, and I will be watering the soil and plants to keep them alive, so a watertight seal is a must. To waterproof the tank, I'm going to be using silicone, specifically GE, General Electric, Silicone 1. This is a pet-safe silicone used by many reptile experts to seal enclosures and fish tanks, and it was $15. Really, it was $10, but you have to buy the gun to use it, so that's an extra $5, so $15 altogether. Now, when you seal it, you don't have to be clean. I obviously did a horrible job, but it's waterproof. And looks won't really matter because I'm going to be covering the entire bottom of the tank with dirt. The dirt I'm using for this is Timberline organic topsoil. It costs $3 for a 40-pound bag. And I'm going to mix it with Quikrete play sand, which costs $6 for a 50-pound bag at Home Depot. So one thing I do hear a lot is people are always looking for substrate that they can't find in this video, right? They're like, I can't find the substrate you have in your video at Home Depot, and that's okay. There's a lot of different substrate brands out there, and they're mostly regional. So if you can't find the one in this video, just look for organic topsoil. It's usually the cheapest one you could find, and it has no manure in it. That's what you want because manure is poop, and it's just the fertilizer they use. You don't want your enclosure smelling like poop. Next up is adding some hides that also act as decor. I got these hides on PangeaReptile.com. They are large cork bark tubes for $14 a piece, way cheaper than the $22 ones at Petco. I start by burying half of them in the dirt, one in the middle, one on the hot side, and one on the cool side of the tank. And my ball pythons love hiding in these as well. I use many different types of hides, and this is their preferred hide over others. So after trying everything, I just use these cork rounds only. But now that I have the cork set up, I start adding the branches in. I got these branches outside in the woods. They are oak, which is safe to use and does well in wetter, humid enclosures. What I try to do with the trees is I try to make it look like a tree has fallen, and the cork bark is the rotting hollow tree. In the wild, lots of snakes like to hide in the fallen trees like this. Ball pythons actually live in holes usually, but I don't have enough room for 200 pounds of dirt to make a hole, so this is what I did. So remember, you aren't limited to just wild replication. This is me getting a tad creative with the process, which you can do as well. Next, I actually decided to throw in yet another cork bark round on the upper level. It's going to make another hide, but also make use of the height of the tank as well. Now it's finally time for the plants. I'm going to be using 3 types of plants for this tank, all of which I got from Home Depot. First is the pothos plant. It's super cheap and pretty much unkillable. I get 1 pot of these. You don't have to get more than that. Usually they cram them into one, and you can actually take it out, and it's usually like 3 plants in 1 pot. You just have to separate them. Then I just place those around the enclosure however I feel like. After planting the plants, I add leaves from my backyard as well, free. I spread that all around the enclosure and try to cover the dirt everywhere in the tank. I usually add a pretty good amount of leaves for this. However, for those who are a little scared of getting like parasites or stuff like that, most parasites actually come from lizards and stuff themselves, and usually they go into pet stores from the lizards because that's the host of the parasite. But if you're worried about bugs or termites or something like that, obviously I am too. So if you are worried, that's why you can buy it on Amazon or PetSmart. Now, I did forget to add the snake and spider plants when I was filming this part, so you'll see those later, but that's what I use, the snake and a spider plant. But it is very important that when you plant the plants and lay down the leaves, make sure to spray the whole tank with water, and water each plant individually with at least a half a cup to a cup of water as well. This will help them take root in the new environment that you just made. Now, for a water bowl, you can use dog or cat bowls, but even those are kind of expensive. What I do is I just use a regular household bowl that we eat out of a human bowl, if you will. And those are pretty cheap. They go for less than $2. And I get one of those for most of my snake tanks. Next, I get some thermometers and place them on the tank so I can monitor the temps. I use these Govee ones right here on Amazon. They cost $15, but they connect to my phone and I can monitor them even when I'm out of my house. After this, it's time for our cleanup crew. I use powder blue isopods for this and some tropical springtails. Total for those came up to $35. Now, the most important part of the entire build is lighting. The first thing I use for lighting is an Arcadia 6% T5 24-inch 24-watt UVB bulb. Then I use one heat lamp for this build. I'm using the ZoomEd 150-watt heat lamp. But most importantly for bioactive tanks, if you want to grow the plants, you need a daylight LED bulb. I use this hyper tough LED shop light. It's 24 inches long from Walmart to grow my plants, and it's less than $20. Now, after all of this is said and done, this is what it looked like on day 1. And this is 6 months later after everything has grown in. As you can tell, it grew like crazy, and the isopods and springtails have taken over the enclosure as well. Now, this whole setup cost me less than $600. I do know that's still very expensive, but for the size of this thing, it being 4 foot long, 120 gallons, it's actually a really good deal for going bioactive. Doing it my way is gonna save you about $500 compared to if you went to a pet store and bought all of this. Anyways, that's all I have for you. Tail here says if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.